So this is my video on how to make keychain and for the project. So here we could have my keychain loaded up and you can see my example. And before I start showing you guys how to do it, let me just start with 3 things you should remember. 1, remember that we need to have it in a small 1x2 inch rectangle. So if you could start your sketch, you can see what I've done here. 1 inch by 2. And you can see that it fits in this rectangle. And the whole reason why we need it to fit in this rectangle is because it needs to be small enough so that way a lot of people can print theirs quickly. And secondly, because it needs to be small enough to fit into your pocket. Now, here's my second piece of advice. If you see any large, sharp edges, I'd recommend using a fillet or a chamfer, mainly a fillet because it actually makes a round edge, to get rid of that sharp edge. Now, coming from experience, this is the original file, by the way, before I added them. Coming from experience, the 3D printers are very accurate when it comes to making sharp edges. So you can cut yourself in sometimes if the shape is not good. Like if it's too sharp or it comes at too many sharp jagged angles. So you can easily solve this by just adding a fillet of your choice. And I suggest using a fillet to the point where it's not going to take up the main piece, like it's not going to get rid of a lot of detail, but to the point where it's not so small that it's irrelevant. That's why I've chosen this fillet here. I want it to look good. And third but lastly, make sure that you have one piece for your keychain. Like make sure that it's not split into 2 pieces that come together. The reason why this is because remember, your keychain is taking a lot of hits in your pocket. It's going to be shaken, it's going to be stirred, it's going to be this and that. You need something that's one piece so that way it can't break as often and because you don't want it to like fall apart. But I digress. So we have our keychain file right here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to open, well first I'm going to save it. I already have it done, but you can save it again. Alright, so then we can go to File, Export, because you can't use Save As, that saves as an IPT file. Then we go to CAD Format. And what you're going to want to do is Save as Type, STL file. I already have it saved here, but you can notice that's already a MakerBot print file, which is what you're going to be using. Okay, so since I already have it saved here, I don't need to save it again. I can press Cancel, and now I can open up MakerBot Print, which I've already got ready. So since I already have my account, I don't need to sign up. But when you press the sign up button, I can show you right now. It's going to lead you to this, and you can see your sign up with Google or sign up with an email address. I'd recommend signing up with an email address, like that way, even if it is a Google, like email, Gmail, because it tends to mess up or it'll tend to be buggy, I guess, especially with the NYC emails, because it's not really a Gmail, I guess. It's like more of a company one. But since I have mine, I can already type it in the fields. Oops. Okay. So now that we have MakerBot Print open, you'll see a bunch of stuff, but this is mainly what we need. We need to add our models, and we're going to find the STL file that we just made. So we're going to open it, and now it's inserting the file. So now that we have the file, you can notice that it's not the way that'd be most optimal. It's on its edge, which is going to lead to more errors. So what we can do is we can use the Orient, Arrange, and Scale tool. Well, in any circumstance, but in this circumstance, we'll use the Orient tool because we want it to be on this edge. So now we can press Place Face on Build Plates. And now we can click this face of the build and it'll pop up this menu. Now we can choose that we want to be on the bottom. And now it is done. Press done. We can exit out of the menu. The arrange will just, if it's more than one piece, it'll sort them out so that way it's not just like jumbo jambo, like it's not just randomly. It makes it so that way all the pieces are organized. But you can arrange the build plate and this will just center it because it's the only object there. With scale, we can, if you think it's too small, you can unclick this or click this. I'd recommend keeping it uniform unless you want to stretch it out or something. And you can change the numbers. So based off of the original file, you can just click it and you can type it in what you want. But I want it to be 100 because I've already got it set perfectly. Lastly, if there's some issue, say for instance, you made it with millimeters, but for some reason it's really small, you can just use model info, select the model, and you can change the units so that way it'll follow the units that are inside or the numbers that are inside the file. Sometimes they can be, it's mostly going to be fine. I really haven't had an issue where it could have an error. I haven't experienced that. So I'm just going to leave it as millimeters because that's all I need. But you have a choice between millimeters, centimeters, meters, inches, and feet. So if you need it, it's there. I can arrange the build plate again. This is the model view is active. And okay, so now that we have our build pretty much centered and ready to print, we can add a printer. This button will allow you to use printers that can print using Bluetooth, or this one can use IP address, but since we're using the ones in the school, we don't have any of those. We're going to need to use one that can take a USB drive. So now we can add an unconnected printer. And pretty much all of these have the capability to take a USB drive. The ones that we use the most is the Replicator Plus. So now you can see that now that I've inputted it, the build plate has changed. It's become much more like rectangular, I guess. So now that we have this, and I can say it's ready, I'm like, all right, let's export it. So now this will open up my thing. I can just go to projects or some. All right. So now we have the file name. It's going to save as a .MakerBot. And this is what we need to use for the printers. I'll just save this as my name and what it is. And now I can press save. So now it's going to take some time to export. And you can see now it'll tell you how long it'll take and how much filament it will take. So now that we have our file saved, let's look at some more advanced things we can do with MakerBot Print. So since this isn't that hard or complex of an object to make where it just flat to the ground and it's much more like a pyramid where it starts very large and it ends up thinning up at the top, it doesn't end up needing like any of the supporting and bridging, but it's possible. So you can notice here when it says extruder type, there's two different types of extruders. One that takes like tougher or more different filament, and one that's a smart extruder, which we use, that doesn't take much tough filament, as I say. We can look at the print mode right here, and we can see how it prints. This is the standard one where it'll fill in with a rectangular grid. This is the draft. It doesn't seem to print in the inside most large. This is the min fill, and you can open custom settings, and you can screw around with these as much as you want. But for this print, I don't really think it's necessary because the balance mode is already strong enough. So this is the supports and bridging. Since my one probably doesn't need that much bridging or any at all, it's probably going to be fine. So it has no support type, custom settings. You can just look through those if you want. And you can reset the settings to default if you feel like it, and these are the default settings. So I think that's pretty much it. I think that's pretty much all you guys really need.